Okay, thank you very much for granting this interview, and we welcome you. I'm very happy to host you at the Press Club de France. For security issues reasons, we had to restrict the audience, but you have a bunch of journalists and producers who are very famous and very keen on Afghanistan, expert on Afghanistan. Some of them have been in Afghanistan many times. Before questioning you, you may say a few words to present yourself, and where is Afghanistan today, and how have you been welcomed in Europe, and have you the feeling of having been heard?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much. It was first and foremost, it's an honor and pleasure to be here with all of you at the French Press Club, and I thank everyone for being here. It means a lot, and well, I'm here because 2 years has passed since the fall of Kabul and Taliban's return. I was here 2 years ago, and before the collapse, months before the collapse, and I shared my concerns about the possibility and the reasons and signs that Afghanistan is going to collapse. But unfortunately, at that time also there was many reasons and many factors which I believe were not being heard, just the way that my father was not being heard in 2001. However, we wanted at that time to bring this message that this is what we think and this is what's going to happen. Unfortunately for my country, those predictions, it came true, one after another. From the collapse of Afghanistan, to return of the Taliban, to the break of all the promises, to the peace deal to be completely gone, even to the point that it is now 100% proved to everyone, Taliban have not changed. They just have better social media managing skills. They have better cars and clothes, and they know how to hide their true intention nature better. However, in the past 2 years, through their policies, through their actions, and through their oppression on women in particular, they showed that they have not changed. At the same time, it took us 2 years to build a narrative, first and foremost, after the fall of the Kabul, because always the narrative of the government of the Republic was to stand for the constitution of Afghanistan against the terrorism, which was the Taliban. After the fall of Afghanistan, the narrative was gone and the people didn't know what to do. And the first and most important thing was to create that narrative. And to do so, we talked to the Taliban first. On 15th of August, I refused to leave Afghanistan. I stayed with my people for many, many weeks. And the first thing we did was to talk to the Taliban. We opened all channels for talking. And we put all efforts into dialogue and negotiation, from scholars to political delegations to myself, whom I talked individually with the Taliban, direct one by one. Muttaqi, Sirajuddin Haqqani, Anas Haqqani, Mullah Baradar, Mullah Yaqub, Maulavi Ghani, and so on and so forth.
But did you try to build up a coalition with them?
With them? Well, that is not up to me to make a coalition. And I cannot make any coalition with no oppressive, anti-women extremist group. Because their principles are completely against us, and also they came through the battle of gun. I only make any coalition with a group which is legitimate, which is coming through the support and through the decision of the people of Afghanistan.
But what were you advocating with them?
Well, the talk was that now that you are coming, do not the same mistake that you did last time. Do not call upon your own government. Do not shape any government. Open all doors for the talk and the engagement of Afghans. Call upon all groups for a national intra-Afghan talk and dialogue. And through a legitimate process, create a new era and a new government and allow people to decide. This was my argument with them, because that's exactly we did after the takeover of Kabul in 2001. Professor Rabbani, who was the president of Afghanistan, after takeover of the Kabul, he did not call his government the legitimate government, or like the only government. He accepted the world's proposal on a legitimate process called Bonn Conference, if you all remember that. And Bonn Conference was the foundation for the past 20 years. That paved the way for the constitutional logica, and that also created a constitution, and then transitional period, and then the elected government of Afghanistan. We were proposing similar thing, and we told to the Taliban, this is what you need. You need to get internal legitimacy. The Taliban's mentality for internal legitimacy, it is recruitment and bay'at, like 1,400 years ago. They were like, okay, Ahmad Massoud, you come and work for us and you be with us. I said, that is not how you do it. Me or whoever, it's not going to bring legitimacy. It will bring you image, decoration, certainly, but not legitimacy. Legitimacy only can be achieved through the vote and the decision of people of Afghanistan, through a legitimate process. They downright refused it. Even recently, one of their representatives, Mullah Zaif, after my trip to Europe, said, well, look, a person from Panjshir is coming and is speaking about Afghanistan. He should speak about only his own province. So this is how they think. They think they own people, they own the country, they own everything. That they just give everyone a piece and keep them. No. We are not speaking about me owning anything or anyone else. We're speaking the people to own something. That is my principles, that is everything. They refused. After that refusal, they attacked us and left us no choice but to defend ourselves. We were 1,200 people in Panjshir Valley, and they attacked with 30,000 troops, including Arab fighters. We have evidence of them. African fighters, Central Asian fighters, and Pakistani fighters. And they attacked us in Panjshir and caused massacre and committed atrocity and committed crimes, which is even unspeakable.
And those foreign soldiers, they were coming through Pakistan?
They were already in Afghanistan alongside them when they attacked Panjshir. Yeah. And they were in cooperation. And
they have been trained in Afghanistan?
They have been trained in Afghanistan and Pakistan and many areas, but however, they were completely in cooperation and full unity and harmony with Taliban. So, you know, in army, it is very difficult that you bring complete different groups. You're like, okay, let's fight together. They had a lot of experience of fighting together against Afghan army and NATO. So they brought all of that with themselves. And unfortunately, at that time, no one heard the voice of us, and everyone turned their back against us, on us. And
you didn't get any support from
no.
United States?
Nothing
Europe.
whatsoever. No help whatsoever. Not political, not military, nothing. And I knew exactly this because before that I had a trip to France. I met the Americans, Brits, European, regional countries. So I knew I'm not going to get anything from anywhere. So in this past 2 years, one of us was building the narrative. And this narrative got its legitimacy with the action of the Taliban, that they refuse to talk and negotiate, and they bring war. So we have no choice but to defend. It was being created. Right now, we managed to achieve something impossible.
And they tried at that time to build a counter narrative. They said they were different than the Taliban's before, and they called them inclusive Talibans.
Well,
where does it come from?
Well, the thing is,
which agency has?
I believe the Taliban and their lobbyists and many other naive politicians who thought about it, they were completely...
Among journalists.
Journalists and many others, they naively believed the Taliban 2.0. Once again, this is another thing, unfortunately. In negotiation with Taliban, no one listened to Afghan people. In withdrawal in Afghanistan, no one listened to Afghan people. In entering Afghanistan, no one listened to Afghan people. In creating the military doctrine, no one listened to Afghan people. In creating political system of Afghanistan, no one listened to Afghanistan. In opening the Taliban's office in Qatar, no one listened to Afghanistan. Barnett Rubin opened the office in Qatar for them. And I'm sure you all know what Barnett Rubin recently said, that the Taliban are the source of all the problems. Well, you paved the way for them to be in Qatar and elevated them politically from terrorist groups to a political group. So this is the thing. You see, when I put these, when I'm speaking with passion about it, because it is so unfair to say, okay, only Afghan leadership's corruption. Yes, they were very corrupt. I was not a part of it. And to say it's Afghans' fault, and Afghan did it to themselves, and they didn't basically use the opportunity. Well, unfortunately, yes, we are at fault, and I really blame, and there is no day passes that I'm not regretting. Although that I wasn't a part of it, but as a whole, as a nation, the opportunity that we lost. But there were major factors and elements which made this possible. If America came to Afghanistan, we had no choice in it. They came. When they were leaving, why they had to negotiate with Taliban? Why they had to agree or sign an agreement with Taliban? Why they elevated them? They could just leave. Let me give you an example which sometimes people forget. And I hope for all of you to tell this truth. Americans forced Afghanistan government to release 5,000 Taliban soldiers. You all know about it. As a good gesture of peace. Afghan Republic had to do it. They were forcing it. Qatar and America promised and guaranteed they are not going to return to the front line. The Republic published evidences that these 5,000 soldiers, most of them, they returned to the front line. And they were one of the main reasons for the collapse of Afghanistan.
And they even said when they were going to go back.
Yeah, they said it. They said it that we are going to go back to fight. Where is the fault of Afghan? The fault of that corrupt government? The fault of the people of Afghanistan? The fault of those soldiers who fought in this? So, following the principle of the West, following the principles of democracy, is this the result? Mm-hmm. So this is one of the things which we created the narrative. The second was organization. The government failed, and we had to create organization. That's why I didn't come to France for the past 2 years, because we were busy doing our own homework. And the third thing was withstanding the all-out war of the Taliban that they are putting to destroy us and destroy resistance. Well, thank God they failed in that. The Security Council verifies, UN Security Council's report verifies what I'm saying now. Not only from 1,200 we didn't get destroyed, but we have expanded to 12 provinces in 2 years, all alone with no help. And now we have 4,000 forces. And I can mobilize hundreds of thousands of forces from Afghanistan army and police and commandos. But unfortunately, I do not have resources to move for their mobilization. Otherwise, there will be hundreds of thousands fighting against the terrorism in Afghanistan. And we wanted to do it to prove to ourselves that we should do it even if we are alone. And secondly, to prove to the world that the people of Afghanistan are standing on principles when they left us. And lastly, we knew it's going to take time for the world to realize their mistakes, to realize Taliban have not changed, and the world was being fooled. So we have done all of those 4 things, and the last thing was the unification of Afghanistan democratic forces. We achieved that. So on principles, you see unity among all opposition of the Taliban. We did that, and that's why after 2 years I'm in France, because we are on the second part of our strategy. It is time for the world to wake up. And my trip to Europe so far has been huge success. Because, yes, there are not some concrete action promises or anything. However, I realized after many, many meetings that we are all on the same page. The feeling and the belief and what I heard, all believe that Taliban regime is against women. There's gender apartheid going on in Afghanistan, which needs to be recognized. They all completely agree that now the Taliban proved they have not changed, only they got much smarter and much more dangerous. And Al-Qaeda integration and the other terrorist groups with the Taliban is another thing, that before they were on the surface. ISIS and these other groups, they publicly say their intention. Taliban and Al-Qaeda, after what happened to them, they got very articulated. Now they do everything under the table. And this threat is much, much more serious.
But what did you ask to European leaders?
Well, in the trips that I had, my request was very concrete. First and foremost, the recognition of the political efforts of Democratic Forces of Afghanistan. Second, recognition of the gender apartheid in Afghanistan. Lastly, international community must stop being so naive and having passive policy for Afghanistan. We need cooperation of international community and the West with regional countries for finding a way out of the situation and a concrete sort of a plan or a clear policy for Afghanistan. And the other thing is that the Taliban won't change, won't come to the table, to the political solution that the international community's cooperation will propose. To do it, we need to bring them to the table. To do that, help democratic forces, people like us.
Did you ask for the embargo to go on, the embargo against Afghanistan?
Well, we request for a bunch of things, and of course sanctions, tougher sanctions and proper measures for the Taliban to feel the pressure was among them. Because one thing which is very important, that the Taliban so far have been very much enjoying the situation that they are at. They are not suffering at all.
Yes, but the first to suffer is the population of Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And they are starving in some regions.
Absolutely.
What is the situation inside?
Well, the people of Afghanistan are very much, this is one of the very important thing, and this is one of the hardest thing that we talked. How to help the people of Afghanistan who are very much in need. And the international aid is their only source of income and source of food. Because the Taliban are spending all of internal income of Afghanistan to empower their war machine for consolidating themselves and their oppression on our people of Afghanistan. So how to do it? It's a very difficult question, and it requires proper sort of sessions and thinking to do it. We proposed ways, which I cannot expose in here, what were the ways, and we also exposed how the Taliban are taking advantage of the current humanitarian aid. For example, the Taliban after 2021 created through their own affiliation hundreds of NGOs. That if you go, it's all after 2021, after 2021, after 2021. And most of them are completely aligned with the Taliban, and they are a part of the Taliban.
Are there any questions? Renaud Girard.
I would like to compare two dates. End of August 2021, end of February 2022. In the first case, Afghanistan, you had an army very much trained and helped with a lot of weapons and a lot of money, trained by the Americans, who did not resist for half an hour. End of February 2022, another army trained and equipped by the Americans, not as much as the Afghan army, but they had some American equipment, which managed to resist the Russian invasion. How do you explain this huge difference between end of August 21 and end of February 22?
Thank you very much. That's a beautiful question, sir. First and foremost, I need to come in defense of Afghanistan National Army. Afghanistan armed forces resisted and fought bravely, all alone, since 2014 to the 2021. Let's not forget that the direct confrontation of the NATO forces on the ground with the Taliban was very minimal, at later stages completely gone, since 2014 after the transition of the security to the hand of the Afghans. First and foremost. Second, the other reason is the incompetence of the political leaders of Afghanistan. Third thing, the intervention of American friends into the military tactics and doctrine of Afghanistan. For example, in 1995, the Taliban also launched the same way their attacks on Mujahideen government. Ahmad Massoud knew exactly he is unable to fight the Taliban and around the Kabul or like in plain of Shamali and stuff. He retreated it to a strategic location like Kabul, Panjshir and the north and the rest. This time I was at the Ministry of Defense with BK Bismillah Khan Muhammadi, the Minister of Defense of Afghanistan. The phone was on the table, and one of the things that they were thinking and talking to a lot of those sorts of the regional commanders of the army, that we had to retreat from the big cities and concentrate on Kabul and cities and provinces around Kabul all the way to Hindu Kush to create a geography which is defendable. However, our American friends told Bismillah Khan that no, you need to keep the cities. So your forces must stay in Herat, in Qunduz, in Mazar, in Kandahar to defend the cities. Which was absolutely wrong in terms of military, let's say, thinking or tactic. Because what would they do? Defend what? Defend just cities, buildings? It was an absolute wrong tactic. The other thing was, once again, the intervention of our friends and the intention of the government in creating initiative to prevent it. Local resistance was something we proposed to the government of Afghanistan, to our friends, international friends, especially Americans. Americans told me in Kabul, we are against local resistance. We do not want to create militias against the government of Afghanistan. And I explained it has nothing to do with being against the government of Afghanistan. It is about saving Afghanistan. We are way past that time to think about like, the stability or the legitimacy of just the government. We are going to lose everything. I understand the background and the history and a lot of issue with Dostum, but he's very popular. Use him in the north. Muhaqiq, use him in the north. Ismail Khan, he's ready with his white beard and he's on the street. Help him. Use him in the west. Create these local resistance from these powerful figures to prevent the fall of the government, to reduce the pressure from Afghanistan army, because Afghanistan army is the backbone of the government. It should not break. So reduce the pressure, let the Afghan army to breathe, because at the end stage, probably last 2 years, the commandos in Afghanistan army were stretched. It was stretched to the point that they couldn't breathe. They were like suffocating because of so much using from.
But they even fight each other. They were very divided.
Who?
Those commanders.
No, not at all. I want like
there was a civil war in Kabul in
when?
95, 96.
What? You speak civil war before the 95, not after 2001.
92.
92.
92.
We are not speaking of any war but the Taliban since the constitution of Afghanistan. This is another thing. They always say the Afghans were divided. The French are divided. The Brits are divided. And many other countries. Yes, we were divided. But we were divided based on how we were thinking the government should be, like a governing, the way of governing and stuff like that. And we always learn from democracies. We use democratic ways to show our difference in opinions. No one revolted against the government of Afghanistan. You never heard Dostum after the 2001 agreement and Bonn Conference and constitution to do anything against the constitution of Afghanistan, to come and say, I don't accept constitution or the government. Nor you heard it from Atta, nor you heard it from, I don't know, Mohaqiq, nor all of these big figures and big names in Afghanistan at that time. So, once again, I'm not in defense of anyone. However, my argument is that these things are saying, it is not actually true. Right? So, to the question once again. The Afghan army did everything they could. At the end, they got demoralized because those soldiers and people that they fought alongside, they abandoned them. And not only abandoned them, they went and elevated their enemy. At the same time, they were created the Afghan army based on American support. Please notice that Americans created Afghanistan to be dependent on two things more than anything. Air support and contractors, just like American army. Without America, who would have provided Afghanistan air support or contractors? Next thing, all of Afghan army contract were planned to run out on September 2021. All of Afghan army's helicopters, you know helicopters, they had to do the, what they call it, to fix them again. Maintenance. The maintenance contract of Afghanistan helicopters and airplanes was up to September 2021. I said as a defense because they really gave their everything. Yes, a lot of politicians, leaders and the stuff, they betrayed Afghanistan. But not those soldiers. They bravely fought. And I kiss their hand and feet for that. However, no.
Demoralization was what was the act that demoralized the army? The negotiations with the Taliban?
The agreement, the negotiation, the lack of support, the incompetent leadership in Afghanistan, the lack of strategy and military
the fact
doctrine.
that they gave the date in which they were going to withdraw from Afghanistan.
Yes, unconditional withdrawal. Alongside it, there were many other factors. However, they really fought bravely. Let me come to the point of the sort of the February, as you said. There were full political support, and yes, they resisted, and they were full-on support for Ukraine. And of course, they managed to resist. However, let me once again to bring that attention to Afghans. In 2001, there were no soldiers on the ground. There were no help from America on the ground, except a very specific special task forces of CIA. With proper strategy and with proper work, only helping the government of Afghanistan of that time, our forces, we managed to defeat the Taliban of that time in 3 weeks.
It was a mistake. So this is when you defeated the Northern Alliance.
the Pentagon.
And then Bonn is decided actually a second war because we will send our troops to develop, to democratize, and to reconstruct Afghanistan, per se. And they did. The NATO soldiers wanted to rebuild Afghanistan with called the PRT, Provincial Reconstruction Team.
Yeah.
So do you think it was a mistake by the Afghan leadership in Bonn to call foreign soldiers at the time? I'm speaking of the Second War.
I understand.
2002.
Absolutely.
Then let's speak about the future.
Yeah. That is absolutely spot on. That's one of the things that I've been very vocal about it. I'm very much in favor of the first strategy. When there was a shift in Washington to change it to full-on sort of presence in Afghanistan, that turned into a disaster. That was a huge mistake. My father, this was actually something that Americans wanted for a long time, and my father resisted and said this is a big mistake. However, that's why the first part was very constructive and very successful, because if you remember, even Iranian, Indian, Pakistanis to some extent, Russians, they were very cooperative of the first part of the strategy. But when it was changed to this part, they slowly changed their position to play a very destructive, because presence of troops on the ground was a strategic threat to Iran, to China, to Russia, and so on. So therefore, that was probably one of the main reasons for the re-emergence of Taliban, for the continuation of the war, for the peace deal not working, and for Afghanistan being in this situation, because the war of Afghanistan the past 20 years was not one-dimensional to say only the Taliban. It was the war between many rivals that they fought inside Afghanistan using these tools. Absolutely right.
Séverine Caz, Le Parisien, she's in charge of the foreign department.
Thank you very much. For the coming years that are coming ahead of you, you said you managed to build up in 12 provinces around 4,000 forces. Can you tell us a little bit more about this? One. And then what do you need practically? Do you need money? Do you need weapons? Are you only on a military strategy? Or do you have also, I don't know, internet strategy, political strategy?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, regarding the first one, after 2021, 15th of August, when we retreated to Panjshir Valley, the Taliban attacked. We defended to the point of the last bullets, and then we realized that it is impossible to hold on to the main valley, and we changed our strategy to guerrilla warfare, and we retreated to the sub-valleys of Panjshir, just like how my father used this tactic against the Soviets. It is very common in many resistance and many guerrilla fighting groups around the world that they use the guerrilla warfare tactic against a big and a stronger opponent. With this, we had huge success in the and last year, particularly that we achieved to shut down the Taliban helicopter. If you remember, we managed to capture 60 Taliban members, which after like spending days with them and realizing it is impossible for a guerrilla group to have like prisoners. We could barely do it on our own, let alone 60 prisoners. We gave them money and we gave them food and we released them, which none of them came back to war, which is interesting. And they actually became a very vocal supporter of us, and that they were like, we went to their turf, we went and we were with them, we were their prisoners, and they had the best treatment of us. While the Taliban, a few weeks later, captured almost 70 people of us. They tied their hands behind their backs, they covered their eyes, just like the Daesh, just like the Nazis, and they shot them, and they publicly published that video online, which is a clear war crime evidence. They published it themselves. After that, we decided to increase our presence in different areas, not to only focus on Panjshir Valley, because the concentration of our forces in Panjshir Valley, it brought too much attention and a presence of Taliban, which was becoming too much for the people, the local people of the province. They killed girls, they raped women, they tortured men, they beat people to death. We have mountains of evidence in that. They took people's houses, they are still in many of those houses. They forced people to leave their houses, and they reached people to the point that they actually came crying to us and begged us that please, the Taliban are torturing us to the point that we cannot take it anymore. Please reduce your presence in Panjshir and go farther in the mountains. Because we were very much on the main valleys, mountains. We were very consolidating ourselves on those mountains, and the Taliban could not catch us. And so they are taking all of their anger on the civilian people, and we had no choice but to reduce some of our forces and
that's why you had to leave the Panjshir Valley and to live, nowadays you live in Dushanbe,
well,
Tajikistan.
I would love that for my permanent residence not to be mentioned.
Put your people as a target.
Sorry?
Much more. If you would still be in
no, my departure will explain it, but the explanation and also my permanent residency's place would be off the record because of security reasons. Already Taliban in the past 3 years attempted to kill me 3 times, and in neighboring countries. So that is that. For me to leave, it was the request of the military committee and the generals. We were on our last bullets, and they said, please go and find anything you can for us. Go and see whoever you can. We need support and equipment. And I left to find support and equipment. By the time I found something to return, it was too late, and they changed the strategy to guerrilla warfare, and the Taliban were inside Panjshir Valley. And they told me, your presence, although that I wanted to be inside, it is going to make our work very hard. We have enough personnel either to do our job or to protect you. If you're here, if they know, they're going to all attack, and we cannot do our job, which is liberating our land. And that is their decisions. And there's no day passes by that I don't wish for me to be inside my country.
Do you travel in the region? Do you go to India? Have you been to Pakistan?
Do you want me to go to Pakistan?
Attitude of the relations of Pakistan with Taliban? They still support the Taliban?
The policy have not changed in the political level, but I believe they got to the point that they know they made mistakes. Yes, and the last part of your question about support, we need everything. We need weapons, we need financial support, we need political support, we need humanitarian support, we need medical support. Just put yourself in the position of people of Afghanistan and think what you need. And last thing, what is our goal? None of our resistance and fighting in war, it is for military purpose. It's all for political purposes. We are resisting because the Taliban are causing atrocity. They are depriving people of their basic and fundamental right, because they are rejecting to talk, to come to table, and they are rejecting to allow people to decide for their own future. Until then, that they're ready to talk, or they completely leave Afghanistan, we continue.
Tarek, Kais Fares,
yes.
France 24.
Yes. I want to go back to what you've just mentioned, about concretely. I mean, you said that you did your homework during the past 2 years. I would like to know, how did you manage concretely to conquer back these 12 provinces, although you said that you were left alone?
We have not conquered. It is not in our strategy to conquer any provinces or even districts. We have prisons. I never mentioned conquering.
I mean, yeah, you controlled back regions that fell under the control of Taliban.
Okay, I need to explain. Once, like in military sense, when they say that, okay, the Taliban took, let's say, Kandahar, it doesn't mean they are everywhere in Kandahar. It means they got the center of the capital, the city, and they have, like, the city and the other districts. it doesn't mean the others, they don't exist. For example, till the very last year, the Taliban did not hold more than 5% of Afghanistan. It doesn't mean they were not in the other 95%. They had presence, but the capital of the districts and the provinces, it was in the hand of the government. Now, the Taliban have that control over the capital of the districts and provinces, and we have no intention to take it because we do not possess enough resources to take in control. We have enough resources only for one thing, either offense or defense.
And for the second part regarding, because we didn't hear you mention the military support. I don't know if you spoke about it with Europeans, with leaders. Military support, did you ask for it? And what about what we've heard during the past 2 days, you mentioning maybe being ready of getting the support of Israel, as it was mentioned by other media?
Well, first and foremost, I never mentioned and I never had an exclusive interview with Israel media, and I never requested for Israel's support or help, military support or otherwise. The question was that, what do you think in future if you become president, how can, like, you know, that sort of regional interaction for peace can play a part in Afghanistan? And my answer was that in that future, the people of Afghanistan and their government can decide how all countries can participate in building a regional peace, because conflict is not the answer, peace is the answer. But it means that everyone must come to that peace. That was the answer. It was completely taken out of the context. And I hope I answered.
And about the military support?
The military support, the thing is that whoever support me militarily in Europe is welcome, because I need means to defend my people. You don't defend your people with just words if the enemy is attacking with knife. Well, so far, the thing is, there's nothing so far. There's nothing, and there's not even promises. But the thing is that I hope it changes, because the threat of Afghanistan, it's not going to remain in Afghanistan.
Harold Iman, CNews.
Yes, thank you. I have two questions that are completely unrelated. 3, 2, 1. Wait, d'accord. The expulsion by Pakistan of 1.7 million Afghans was announced. I'd like to know why you think that's happening and what effects it will have. That's the one question. And the second one is, how do you judge the withdrawal? Because in the United States, it passes for a catastrophe, the biggest mistake that Biden ever made. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Regarding the first question, the Pakistan, I believe the Pakistan, by the way, I heard it from the Pakistanis themselves. They said, we fought against the Soviets and we helped and did everything because the presence of Soviet in Afghanistan was a strategic threat to us. This is what they said. We fought against the Americans and NATO in Afghanistan, and we used all means because their presence in Afghanistan was a threat to us. This is, it was very unfortunate that actually they were getting the billions from America and spending it to kill Americans. And this is something which is very, how to say, it's heartbreaking, because how politics is very cruel. Regarding the Pakistan's position, I believe that they got the tactical victory that they wanted, but they have received, or they have faced, a strategic defeat. Because right now, they are unable to control, at least till now, their security situation. There are 90 bombings every day in Pakistan, across the Pakistan, and they are completely bankrupt. If there is no help of China and other entities, they're economically in a very deep problem. Their political stability is very, very shaky. It's very unstable. and also their relationship to the world. It is not very good. They are being seen as a country who always begs for money. As a matter of fact, this very own creation of Pakistan called Taliban are showing to be much more competent in terms of government than their masters called Pakistan. However, I hope that they realize their mistake, and I hope for them to start changing the policy at the higher level to play a constructive role in Afghanistan, because the strengthening of extremism in Afghanistan and the threat of terrorism from Afghanistan, it is not just a threat to Pakistan, but to all of us. Regarding the second question about the withdrawal, well, as a friend in here mentioned, throughout the past 20 years, there were some huge mistakes that in many of those cases, actually, I had good American friends, and especially from Pentagon and the rest, that they were very much unhappy with the political decisions which was being made without consultancy or consulting with the professionals, and especially those who are serving in Afghanistan and sacrificing their lives. Let's say that talking with the Taliban was a big mistake, starting the talking, and then continuation of the agreement was a huge mistake. That agreement was catastrophe. However, that although that in itself it was a huge mistake, but it could not end up this catastrophic if it would not be followed by a debacle of withdrawal, unconditional withdrawal from Afghanistan, that even the closest allies of America, which is Europe, was not consulted with. They single-handedly ended the war in the worst possible way, which had a ripple effect that we see it from Ukraine to many other places.
Maybe last questions, more personal, if you don't mind, about your destiny. We remember you more than 20 years ago following the coffin of your father in the mountains. And I've listened that you had a strong vocation to become astronomer. You want to study astronomy. Would you dream of a day when you go back to study stars and galaxies?
That is my dream, and now that you have opened the wound, and let me talk about it then. I'm in love with the stars and with science. It's a different passion. It's just like constantly I'm trying to learn. And whenever I find time, I'm trying to know what's happening, especially in the cosmos. It was my passion, and it is very much my passion. And I hope that one day, in a free Afghanistan, I will be able, with the help of all of you, for us to open a center for amateur astronomers, and to be able to bring those intellectuals who are capable, because I'm not capable, I'm just enthusiastic, to teach them in a free Afghanistan, that I can take my daughter to go and learn there, to learn in there and study there, and then I can take her to some music festivals or some, I don't know, cinema, and then to come at home and watch the TV that a legitimate, democratic government of Afghanistan is speaking about policies to help Afghanistan fight climate change.
Well, one of my strongest souvenirs is spending a night in the place where your father was killed in Rajabaudin, yes. And I was with Didier Martini. Yeah. He's the editor of a film called Who Killed Massoud. Yes. Maybe you remember that film. And it was very, very, very moving.
Which I need to say as new generation to thank you. Those documentaries truly inspired us to stick to the principles of Massoud and the principles of democracy.
And here's Tony Comiti, a very famous producer who did
many
documentaries on Afghanistan. Yes. Okay, it has been really a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having
And
me. Thank
if
you
you
all
have
for
time
being here.
enough, maybe we can share something to eat.
Sure,
if there is
absolutely,
something to-
absolutely.